Hi, this is Kermit the Frog.
Fascinating.
I'm Captain Kirk.
Magic is always there,
Aye, sir.
as long as we keep looking for it.
Engage.
What does God need with a starship?
Thank you, love you. Mwah.
I protest. I am not a merry man.
Places, please. And here we go.
Down at Fraggle Rock.
Welcome, Doozers, Gorgs, Pakleds, and things to episode 145 of the MuppeTrek Podcast. I'm Steve.
And I'm Jarman, and we're on a journey across the stars to compare and contrast the creative worlds of Jim Henson and that old Gene Roddenberry.
What started as reviews of The Muppet Show and Star Trek the original series has expanded into outer space.
And this week we have Fraggle Rock episode The Beast of Bluerock and Star Trek The Next Generation episode Samaritan Snare. But before we do that, Steve, you know what I want to do? I want to rock.
All right. Well, there are all kinds of gems, jewels, and geodes in the world, many of which can be found in Fraggle Rock. This week's is brookite. It's a variation of titanium dioxide, and it was named in 1825 France by a guy named Armand Levy, who first kind of identified and discovered it. They naturally form in these long kind of sheets, very flat, thin gems. Normally a beautiful brown color, typically tinted with yellow or red, depending on rarity. And it is sometimes used in jewelry. I feel like a lot of these things I talk about just suck for jewelry. But typically it's in protective settings because it cuts really, really well, but it's also not hard. So after you cut it, there's a highest chance of chipping and other destruction. And natural brookite isn't used in industrial stuff. Like, my question is always, how is this used? But synthesized versions of it are used in medical coatings and paint coloring.
You know, it first reminded me of looking at it. Looks like the thing from Jurassic Park that the mosquito was in.
Amber.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. I could see it. So yeah, that's brookite, and that rocks.
That does rock.
Well, what's going down in Fraggle Rock? Well, what's up, Doc? Sprocket is sick, and Doc is making him dog food gumbo. Doc looks for veterinarian in the phone book, but Sprocket is spooked. He tries to prove to Doc that he isn't sick, but he nearly passes out. Doc did try to take him, and Sprocket gets vicious. He begs and pleads not to go, and Doc asks him if maybe he's just afraid. Well, Sprocket finally gives in. Doc returns Sprocket after the vet visit. He was so brave, and now it's time to take his medicine, which saps his bravery again. What's going down in Fraggle Rock? Wembley rushes to tell Gobo something, but Gobo is reading Uncle Traveling Matt's book about the Beast of Bluerock. The legend says explorers searched for it long ago, but never came back, and it only appears for 2 days a year, and it happens to be those 2 days. Gobo makes it his mission to go and find it, and we get a weird early cutaway to Uncle Traveling Matt, and not a postcard. He's like just telling a story, kind of.
That was odd.
Uncle Traveling Matt is interested in the silly creatures and their garden pets. They're very noisy, they're herbivorous, and they're hungry. Uncle Traveling Matt gets closer to take a look, but he is nearly overtaken and attacked by one of the garden pets. Gobo and Wembley invite the others to come with them, but the next day is Red's big splashathon, and suddenly Wembley has to decide between the splashathon and helping Gobo. They try to talk Red into it, but she doesn't want to miss Large Marvin, the fattest Fraggle in the world. They take a vote, but Wembley is the deciding vote, and he can't decide. He's a Wembler. He eventually sides with Red, and Gobo is just devastated and gets sort of incorrectly mad at Wembley. Gobo is going on his own. He's sick of Wembley's wembling. Wembley yells at Gobo before then wishing him good luck. Wembley tries to sleep and confronts his fear about being alone in the song Brave Alone. The next morning, they realize that Gobo forgot his pickaxe. Wembley goes to see the trash heap, like immediately. He doesn't travel there. It's just a smash cut. He's there. Who reassures him that Gobo is going to be fine, and she refuses to use her magic to call Gobo back. Wembley resolves to go after Gobo himself. The heap gives him a song for his journey instead of a magic ring. She sings Brave Boy, Jump Over. It's sort of a groovy island-styled tune that seemingly makes no sense in the moment, and sure enough, doesn't pay off. Boober tries to warn Wembley against going after Gobo, but he can't be dissuaded. Boober goes to tell Moki and Red, and they decide that Large Marvin is probably just going to win the Splashathon, so they can just go. And they go after Wembley. Wembley journeys alone, facing scary noises and spooky creatures, and being surprised by the others as they catch up to him. They find an ancient doozer construction bridging a chasm. The bridge begins to collapse after Wembley eats it while sitting on it.
Smart guy.
And Wembley is launched across the chasm. Wembley goes on as the others try to find a different way across. Wembley runs into Gobo, giving him his pickaxe. Gobo is touched, but he's afraid. He sort of gives up his quest to face the Beast of Bluerock. They sing the song Wemblin' Fool, and Wembley takes up the pickaxe. They go to strike the rock and fall right through it. And there she is. Marjorie the trash heap is there suddenly. She is the real Beast of Bluerock, and the real beast is fear, which they have conquered.
Whoa.
She teleports the boys home above the splashing hole, the swimming hole, where they make a huge splash, knocking Marvin out of first place and winning the Splashathon.
Poor Large Marvin.
Great. Poor Large Marvin. The fattest Fraggle in existence. I love how they said that out loud. I love it. All right. So, Jordan, what did you think of this episode of Fraggle Rock?
I liked it. It was a lot of fun. There's the good two stories, and we got to see the no Gorgs this episode, unfortunately. Yeah. But because he's passed right by the Gorgs, skipped them entirely. I remember that the trash heap scene was odd at first because it was filmed strangely, and they had Wembley in front of a green screen. But then I realized it's because they were setting up that branch to be used as a limbo branch for the number. That was odd.
Yeah,
but it was still really cool. And then I really liked the Wemblin song. Thought that was really cute.
That is one of the all-time classic Fraggle songs.
I like that. It really was kind of a banger, as the kids would say.
It is.
There's a whole theme of facing your fears with the dog, Sprocket, and them all facing their fears. So it really went well together. And Large Marvin was just the star of the whole show. I mean, come on.
Large Marvin.
But also we get a lot more of how powerful the trash heap is and how magical she really is. She can teleport people. She can astral project. And even
Wembley was use your power to save him. Yeah. No, I only use it to steal all the radishes.
That's the only reason I can use it. But yeah, she can astral project into a cave. She's just really more powerful than I ever thought. Yeah, I don't know. So what'd you think?
So I think this episode suffers from some pacing issues. Some of the music, as far as Wembley's first song, wasn't that good. And then the jump up, turn around, toss over, that whole thing, I thought it was going to pay off in some fun or meaningful way.
He'd jump up to save himself from something later, but that didn't happen.
Or that move was going to get him through a trap or some crap. Whatever Indiana Jones reason. It didn't matter, and it just fell down. I don't know why it was there.
That was odd.
The stuff with Large Marvin just didn't. I wish maybe we'd gotten more of the Splashathon and more of Red trying to organize, some deeper intro into the B plot,
right,
to fill those gaps. So this one's kind of, I think, towards the bottom for me. But Wemblin is just as a diamond in the rough here.
See, I liked it more than you did as far as I just really liked the storyline of them going through the cave, and there was really cool scenes, and it looked really cool, and the Blue Rock, and just a Wembley heavily focused episode. So it was upper for me, but the fact there's no doozers and you're right,
no Gorgs
and no Gorgs, and the A&B plot didn't really mesh very well. I could see that bring it down to more of a middle for me, but I still enjoyed it a lot. And there were a couple good songs and a couple stinkers, but a couple good songs. So it kind of evened out in the end.
Fair.
Yeah.
What were those silly creatures up to? Well, Uncle Traveling Matt experienced lawnmowers. Well, they were invented in 1830 by a guy named Edwin Beard Button in England. It was inspired by an existing machine that used rotors to trim fabric in factories and do these crazy quick shears. By the mid-1800s, it was being mass-produced, but they were all fully manual, like the push-style mower, and it took significant force to push. By the late 1800s, they figured out how to make giant ones and hook them up to horses and would use them to cut large estates and huge fields and stuff. But those all went away when the first motorized versions showed up in the early 1900s. Now, mind you, they were bigger, they were louder, the engines were not as small or efficient, so not that many people use them. The lawnmowers we know today really kind of came into their own post-World War II era, with GIs returning and suburbia expanding. More and more people were not living in cities and had houses with yards.
That makes sense. Nowadays,
mowers come in all sizes and flavors. There's battery operated, there's mow and mulch ones. They even have automatic Roombas that are like Roomba mowers.
Oh gosh.
that you just program the edges of your yard and it just goes and does it.
And it automatically kills any cats or squirrels that get in the way, you know.
Hey, only squirrels. So yeah, that's what those silly creatures are up to. Lawnmowers.
Very nice. Very nice.
Jarman, what did you think was the best Muppeteering moment this week?
I'm going with Large Marvin, just the him existing. It was just great seeing a large Fraggle of that size. He was cool looking, and they also had to make him splash in the water several times. And just in general, making him seem like a Fraggle. He was designed very well, but just a really big Fraggle. I want to see like a giant jacked Fraggle someday, just like a muscly Fraggle.
That's larger, Mark.
Yeah.
He's the most jacked Fraggle.
He spends all day in the rock gym.
He's still going to have a real dumb voice, though.
Hey, guys.
And then I go and I work out my arms. Yeah. Sometimes I lift rocks.
And Wembley tries to go to the gym with him, and that's like a whole episode, him trying to get strong. I'd watch it.
Wembley gets swole.
Yeah. I need protein powder. What about you? What's your favorite one?
So this is going to be dumb because it's like a very specific moment. So when Wembley goes to the trash heaps and they do jump up, turn around, just over, like that whole thing, it was like 30 seconds into the song, and then suddenly I realized there was like movement up in the upper right of the frame, and it was like a bird on the branch that was supposed to be the one like whistling the tune that was happening.
I missed that entirely. I think I was taking notes.
Right. It was like really cute and enchanting, and I was like, oh, they wanted to explain why that whistling sound was in there, so they just put a bird playing the song in the frame. But it was real cute and a moment that took me by surprise.
It just happened to be a moment I missed entirely in this episode.
It caught you too by surprise.
Apparently. Now it is.
Well, Jarman, what happened this week on Star Trek The Next Generation?
Well, this week we have Samaritan Snare. It starts off with Picard arguing with Dr. Pulaski about something, where he says he refuses to have some kind of operation done on the Enterprise with her. So she orders that he must then go to a nearby starbase to have it done, and he angrily agrees. Fine. Wesley is also on his way to the same starbase to retake his Starfleet exams that he didn't pass in a previous episode, if we remember that one. So it looks like he and Picard are about to go on a road trip together, but for some reason, instead of just whisking them both there with their warp-capable ship and just jumping right back, they are making them take a non-warp shuttlecraft, so it'll take 6 hours to get there. Right as Wesley and Picard take off, though, the Enterprise gets a distress signal from a nearby ship, and they go to it and find a seemingly unintelligent alien race called the Pakleds, and their ship is disabled due to some malfunction, and they have trouble communicating with Riker and just keep repeating stuff like, "We looked for things to make us go. We are far from home. Our ship is broken. Can you help?" So they seem harmless enough, so Geordi just immediately volunteers to go over and repair their ship, which it seems to be very out of date, so it'd be really easy for him to fix. This is after many protests from Worf that they don't know anything about these aliens. They might be dangerous, so they shouldn't send him over to the chief engineer by himself. But they're like, it'll be fine. Meanwhile, back in the shuttlecraft, Wesley and Picard sit in awkward silence as Picard is cranky and won't make any conversation with Wesley, just reading a book. And then back in the Pakled ship, Geordi fixes the first problem that they have, but it seems they have yet more issues with their ship they didn't tell them before. So right then, Troy just bursts onto the bridge and says, those Pakleds are dangerous liars and Geordi's not safe over there. So apparently Worf was right. So once Geordi fixes their next problem, they tell the Enterprise they're actually going to keep him, and they stun Geordi with his own phaser. Then they power up their shields that are somehow more advanced than they have any business being. And Riker and Data have to do a deep scan of their ship to find out the whole thing is cobbled together of all sorts of alien races from across the galaxy. And the shield is basically strong enough to keep them from beaming him back. And back on the snoozy shuttlecraft, because the dark, pretty much, like have the lights at half mast, Picard finally starts to open up to Wesley about the reason for him going on this trip. So apparently back when he was young and a brash Starfleet graduate, he got into a bar fight with a couple of big gnarly Nausicaans in a space bar, and he got stabbed in the heart. So now he has an artificial heart, but it's malfunctioning, so he has to go get a new one installed. And he didn't want Pulaski to do it in the ship because he was embarrassed that the whole crew would hear about it and think that he was weak. So now he's having it done more secretly on the starbase, but he's still a little scared of the procedure. So a common theme with the Fraggle episode there, that he's, facing our fears. But back in the Enterprise, they can't beam Geordi back because of the advanced shields the Pakleds have. And the Pakleds are saying they're going to keep Geordi because he'll make them powerful. And now they tell the Enterprise to give them all their computer records or they'll kill Geordi. So Riker and the crew come up with a ruse where they'll give Geordi a coded message so that he'll pretend to be joining up with the Pakleds willingly. And they'll pretend that Geordi is a weapons expert so that the Pakleds let him mess with their ship controls. And this leads to the Enterprise shooting out some kind of harmless red gas that Geordi fools them into believing was actually neutralizing their weapons. So they give up and let Geordi, they give up at that point and they let Geordi go back because they're like, oh no, we are not powerful. We are not smart. But oh no, Picard's surgery on the starbase is going downhill and he's on death's door. And the only person who can save him is Dr. Pulaski, apparently, since she just happens to be an expert on exactly what is going wrong in his surgery. So they whisk her back to the starbase after dealing with the Pakled problem, and she saves him at the last minute, and his new heart is successfully installed. And Picard wakes up to see her there and is pissed to learn that now the whole crew ended up finding about his surgery anyways. And that is the end of Samaritan Snare. So, Steve, what did you think of this one?
Okay, so some things I liked.
Yeah.
I liked that this was maybe the first time where it was an actual non-Picard A-plot.
That's true.
They've kind of done it in the past, but the one I'm thinking of, Picard started as the B-plot, and by the end was the A-plot again. I liked the good, finally felt contributions from Troy and Worf this episode.
That made sense, yeah.
Worf finally got to be right. I liked getting some more background on Picard, his time with Wesley, especially after them kind of confronting them like, you don't like kids, it's fine. I wish we had gotten some sort of wrap up with Wesley.
Oh yeah,
Picard
you're right
there. Like Pulaski leaves and goes, you have a visitor. He's like, no visitors. And she leaves and in comes Wesley.
And be like, I passed or I failed again.
Yeah, whatever. And then Pakleds, like kind of lovable but goofy. Like there was something kind of enchanting about them, even though
very
they
much
were the
so.
bad guy.
Their eyebrows are always like kind of up and questioning.
And then great to see this sort of like consequence, or them at least explaining like, why is Wesley on our ship so much? Shouldn't he be in school? Like I just like they finally are kind of like, he got practical credit for his time here. I was like, oh, okay, got it.
Sure, that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some things that I struggled with. So if the Pakleds were as dumb as they think, why were they not more suspicious that these dummies somehow invented space travel, but they're really stupid? Like Worf was right. This not only was suspicious, there was something obviously up with this situation that I feel like even if one person was like, wait, if they're dumb, how do they have a spaceship? Like, why did no one ask that question?
I like what Data said, at least, where he's like, they could just have really bad communication, but be smarter than they seem. They just don't speak very well. Like, that was a good thing Data said. Like, that's probably true, but they didn't follow up on it. Like, hey.
No. So it was one of those things where I was like, Worf didn't even need to be that correct. There was logic that should have caught this problem.
That's true.
And then the reveal that the Enterprise had to go back made no sense because it was like, what are they going to do to help Picard and a heart surgery? But they only hit it so they could do a big reveal that Pulaski was the only person that could save Picard.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt dumb. It felt like the dumbest big reveal thus far. It did not come off well.
It didn't need to for that to happen at the end of this episode. It wasn't necessary.
No, and I wish that Picard would have just had one soft moment with Pulaski. But he was a real dickbag right until the end.
She saved his damn life.
Right. So there were just some things that could have made this episode nicer that just weren't there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I always love the Pakleds. I think they're hilarious, and they've come back thankfully in Lower Decks, the animated series, in a really funny way. Because they always toe that line of like, they're smarter than they appear. They're always up to something. Like they're all dicks, like they're always trying to trick people, and they're just like, oh, we're just dumb. This is a big one with Star Trek lore because of Pakleds, but also because of artificial heart, like we talked about. Like that comes back as well in a future episode about that happening in a big way. But I think this also moved kind of slow in parts. I kind of hinted at that in my summary, and that it kept cutting back to the shuttlecraft and nothing was happening. And these slow scenes with Wesley and Picard, which I like the exposition, what they're talking about. They just maybe could have presented it in a little different way. It was like, they literally would sit on a shot of them just sitting there saying nothing. I'm like, I get it. They're bored, but can we pick it up the pace a little faster? And then we cut back to...
I agree that I think that the story where Jean-Luc's talking about like him getting stabbed was the one time in there where I was like, okay, we're getting Picard telling a 1:15 story.
Yeah.
This deserves the screen time. But you're right. On either side of that were scenes where it was like, this does not need to be this long.
And they cut back to the shuttlecraft and they'd say 2 words and then they take a break and then cut right back to the other A plot. I'm like, okay, was that necessary for that little scene? I don't know. But it's just a little odd.
Not dead. They just wanted you to know.
Yeah.
They're not dead.
But I thought it was, other than that, I thought it was fine. It was funny. I love the Pakleds, and Geordi gets a lot of screen time, which I love.
True. We don't get a lot of big Geordi episodes.
Yeah, and he's just so pleasant and everything.
And we got his protege again, but I think this is the last episode she's in.
She's just gone after this.
Just gone.
She also comes back in Lower Decks, though. We'll see that in like 10 years when we watch Lower Decks. But yeah, I think
it's more like 13 or 14.
Probably. It's a solid middle episode for me, I think, because of the Pakleds. They bring it up for me.
Yeah, I will say the Pakleds almost get it back up. So probably middle for me, too.
Yeah. Nothing outstanding this go around. So some Trek facts. Will Wheaton and Patrick Stewart came up with the gag at the end where there's a regular door when they're going into the starbase. And Wesley Crusher encounters this non-automatic door for the first time. He's never seen one before, apparently. So Wesley just stares at the door. Picard looks at Wesley, and then he's like, ugh, I got it. And he pushes the door open because these kids today don't know how doors work. I barely noticed that in the actual episode. The original plan was for there to be a captain's yacht that was going to be used to transport Picard to Starbase 515 for immediate heart surgery, which actually would make more sense that they'd have some kind of more immediate vessel to take him there. But the producers decided to nix the idea because of budget constraints and just use a traditional shuttlecraft that they already had a miniature for. But eventually, apparently Captain's Yacht in the Enterprise D is never used or shown throughout all of TNG. But the Enterprise E, they would have one in Star Trek Insurrection. They have a Captain's Yacht in that movie when we get to that. So I forgot what that looks like. The Pakled ship is said to contain technology acquired from the Gerada, which apparently was the unseen insectoid race from the Big Goodbye, which I don't remember there being an insectoid race mentioned in that. But the surface of Starbase 515, the planet used, was a reused map painting from the Angel 1 episode. It's like the same exact planet. They might have redone that for the HD remaster. And Worf reports that the Pakled ship is only capable of sublight speed, which goes back to what you were saying a little bit. The crew of the Enterprise make no suggestion that they have encountered the Pakleds before, which indicates that this is probably a violation of the Prime Directive, because you're supposed to only talk to races that have faster than light travel, like warp speed. And so if this ship has no warp speed on it, they're not supposed to talk to them or even interact with them.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't have said sublight, because they're like, you guys are breaking the Prime Directive again for no reason.
Now you fucked up, Riker.
But Steve, what are our Trek connections this time around?
Okay, so there was a biomolecular physiologist that was called in for one really stupid scene that did not need to exist. Well, that was played by actor Zima, who played General Shang in the movie Arrival, which starred Amy Adams, who, of course, was in 2011's The Muppets.
Hey. And he's been in like hundreds of movies, too, that guy.
Yeah. And then Surgeon, no name, just Surgeon, was played by Daniel Benzali, who's been a character actor for a really long time. He's got an IMDb page a mile long. He played a character, David Williams, in 2015's Agent X, which starred Sharon Stone. And as we all know, in the movie Elmo's Adventures in Grouchland, Sharon Stone is parodied as Sharon Groan. And she is attending her premiere of her movie, Basically It Stinks.
Oh, gosh. You always want, Elmo to be referencing Basic Instinct. That's a great idea.
Basically It Stinks.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, so those were our very close Trek connections this week.
It makes sense because they're so similar, these two episodes. I mean, both feature similar looking creatures. The Pakleds and Large Marvin had a striking similarity.
I can see it. Both feature people wanting to go somewhere alone and having someone else join them unexpectedly. Gobo, when he goes looking for Blue Rock, kind of, and when Wembley catches up to him, and Wesley going to the starbase and Picard tagging along.
That's true. Both feature an engineering problem that wasn't what it seemed. Geordi thought he was fixing the Pakled ship, but really it was all a ruse to keep him on board. And Gobo and Wembley thought they had to pickaxe through the Blue Rock, but really they just had to face their fears to go through it.
And there was a nice lady on the other side.
Yeah, nice lady.
Both feature simple folks being denied power beyond their understanding. The Pakleds, when Geordi disables their photon torpedoes, and Wembley being denied by Marjorie to teleport Gobo back.
That's very true. That's
both
very
messing
true.
with power they don't get.
They just don't understand. Whoa, Jesus.
Transporter
Scared the
malfunction.
crap out of me.
Transporter malfunction.
All right, now it's time that episode where you transport one character from one episode and switch them back to the other and vice versa. I think I said that right. So what you got for us, Steve?
Trek to Rock this week, I'm going to bring over the Pakleds and replace Wembley, but only in that one scene where he's sitting on a bridge and then eats it, because it was so stupid that I could see those big dummy Pakleds doing the same thing.
We are hungry.
This tastes good. We will eat this.
Eat bridge. Good.
Bridge sit good, too.
That's fantastic. Trek to Rock, I'm going to have Geordi transport over to take the place of Gobo. He would figure out like the harmonic resonance or some such of the Blue Rock, and he'd figure out that it was actually an illusion caused by some advanced trash cheap technology. So he'd figure the whole thing out before even touching it.
Bring over the Gorgs, who this is where they were this episode. Bring them over and replace the Pakleds, because I think it'd be so funny to watch Junior like, now give me the photon torpedoes.
Captain,
Daddy,
they
won't give me the
communication.
photon torpedoes. Junior.
What, Dad? I want the ship to go.
but like, Junior just wants power. He doesn't care how he gets it.
Yeah. He'll kill all the Fraggles he has to get it.
I'll kill them all, Daddy.
So Rock to Trek, I'd have the Trash Heap and her cronies. What are they called again? I always forget their names.
Philo and Munge.
Philo and Munge. They're going to come over and take the place of the Pakleds. Could she lure the Enterprise crew over to her ship, pretending to need their help, but it would really be a ruse to teach them some moral lesson about friendship or something?
Oh, true.
Yes.
And then there'd be a groovy island song about it.
Yes.
I will say the Groovy Island song felt a little insensitive, but I also had to remind myself, Marjorie is a trash heap. She's not, she's
She's not
she's
really
a
all there.
raceless individual.
It's like my friend's about to die. Yeah, let's sing an island song. Okay. Sure, Marjorie. It's fine. Oh, man. Well, that brings us to the end of episode 145 of the MuppeTrek Podcast.
Join us next time for Fraggle Rock episode, New Trash Heap in Town. And of course, this is the last episode of season 1 of Fraggle Rock. So we will also be talking our top 3 and bottom 3 episodes for Fraggle Rock so far.
That's right. It's monumental. It's 24 episodes this season. And we'll have regular thing for Star Trek Next Generation episode, Up the Long Ladder.
So from the lovers, the dreamers, and us,
live long and prosper, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the MuppeTrek Podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media on Facebook and Twitter.
Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.
This podcast has been brought to you by A Play on Nerds.